right. We are back, the Super Real Estate Bros podcast, after a very, very, very unfortunately long hiatus.
Been
We're
a while.
back. We're doing the thing. I have a new co-host. We did it. We found it's that guy.
Me?
No, it's the dude behind you at the bookshelf.
Oh, ta-da! Climbing up the ladder right here.
Yeah, it's like our co-host now is just like Nietzsche or some famous philosopher.
Here you go. There you go.
I love it. I love it. Well, Tony, I know you, but people don't know you. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell the world who you are?
Well, all right. Well, my name's Tony. I am from California originally. Been in Texas for more than 10 years. I don't know exactly, 12, 13, 14. You can make up a date. I'd probably say, yeah, that's all right. So been here a while. Been in Houston for about 9 years, doing real estate the entire time since I've been in Houston. I love it. I love what I do. I love outside of work. I focused on. I've got an 8-year-old daughter. She's in second grade. Hang out with her and big into sports. I've been in Houston now for 9 years. I do not call any of the Houston teams my team yet. Let me rephrase. I don't think that yet. I take that away. I don't know if I ever will. I've got a little special, place in my heart for those teams from back in California. But yeah, I mean, I do residential. I do a lot of, people who are buying their first homes, a lot of rentals, and starting to work with a lot of investors these days. So
I'm very glad this is not the Super Houston Texans podcast. What? How did we get here?
Wrong one.
Yeah. That's a whole nother podcast for a different day. Okay, so tell me a little bit about this. So I don't think people know you're a San Francisco 49ers fan, Cal Bears, Oakland Athletics. And I have to ask for this. What is that like being in Houston and being a Bay Area sports fan?
What's it like? I mean, it's. I think it's nice because we don't. I feel like we don't have an obnoxious fan base, right? Like my buddy, Eagles fan, right? And so when you're in Texas and you're an Eagles fan, there's you're kind of button heads, or if I was in Houston and I was a Niners fan, there's that more of that Cowboys thing, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like down here, people, they like to rib a little bit. They like to kind of give me, garbage for it. But at the same time, it's weird because in a way, the A's were kind of like the Astros. They kind of built up, the A's from before we had this new ownership group. But, we were homegrown talent. We were bringing in people and we were young and we were, we kind of built it the way the Astros did when they had several bad years and then they turned it around. But it's, I got nothing but love for some of these fans here.
I love it. Well, and it just speaks to Houston's culture. I mean, for the most part, you're welcome to celebrate whatever team you like out here,
Yep.
Unless they're in town, and then everyone will let you know about it. But regardless, I'm glad to be in business with you. I like that we get to enjoy Bay Area sports together. Well, let's talk about why we're really here.
Yes.
So we're doing a case study today, and this is something that you actually just went through, a transaction that you just went through. And this is a really cool one. So if you don't know what house hacking is, we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how your client house hacked in the Roman Forest area, which for those of you who are listening to this, Roman Forest is northeast of Houston. It's, kind of past Porter a little bit, that area on the way to Splendora, kind of that way. And he bought a duplex. He's living in one half, renting out the other half. Was already a tenant was already in place.
Yep.
So got a really good deal. But we're going to talk about that today. We're going to unpack that a little bit. So Tony, first of all, why don't you tell me how you met this person, kind of what the game plan was, like your initial conversations, and what was the conclusion you came to on how you were going to go and find these properties that worked for him?
Right. So let's attack what a house hack means. first, right?
Sure.
So a house hack, right? Basically trying to build up your investment portfolio, right? You want to build up portfolio, but you're living. So it's like, hey, this for in our case, our guy, he bought a duplex because he's going to live in part of it. Because when you're living in a home, it's different. You get better rates. You get it's different when you're living in that home versus an investment loan, for example, right? And I know I'm not doing a good job explaining, so you can come and
No, I mean, I think okay, so like very simply, house hacking is when you are buying a property to live in, and normally you're buying some sort of multifamily, and you're doing the house hack is like either you're renting out multiple rooms within that house, or you're
Mhm.
doing multifamily and renting out multiple units while you live in one. And Tony's absolutely right. You're getting a better interest rate because a lot of the times when you house hack, you're doing an FHA loan or a VA conventional loan, but FHA is one of the better ones because you have 3.5% down. Your rates are better.
Yep.
But your client specifically, he is actually a veteran, correct?
Right. So we had a couple things here, right? So the first thing is our client here, my client, he was a referral, right? We're in Houston. Uh, he was a referral, and he was living in California, right? So there's a couple layers to this one because not only was he in California from the entire process of the first conversation until closing, he never stepped foot into the property, and we can kind of go into that later. And then he wanted to do the house hack. He was looking for a multifamily. He was a VA, right? So we had access to VA loans, and he was a first time home buyer. So there's a whole bunch of. It was almost like we took all these different case studies and put it into one, you know.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot there. I mean, sometimes we'll deal with like VA by themselves, right? And we're
right,
doing one right now where they're getting like zero closing costs at closing, right?
right,
Or it'll be like, hey, they're buying their first investment property
yep.
or whatever, right?
Mm.
So it's crazy because we kind of packed all of this into one,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
it was
like,
great. And it was great because so we talked to him on the phone, right? And it was kind of the first conversation was getting the basics. Oh, you're interested. Oh, you're from Houston originally, but you were in the military. Now you're in California working. What's your goal? It was kind of asking him what his wish list was, right? What are you looking for? What do you think you can afford? And sometimes buyers don't know what they don't know, right? He knew he wanted a house hack, but at the same time we didn't know how much he could afford, how much, what he needed money wise to put down. And so it's kind of once we got his general idea, like, hey, you guys, this is this is what we want to do. Hey, first conversation is we are connecting you with a lender who works with VA loans, right? Because that way there's no point to go shopping and to figure things out until you know how much you can afford, right? Or how much he's willing to afford. So, but before he even got that, so we jumped on a Google Meet call so we can share screens. And it was kind of that idea, like, look, introducing a little bit to the Houston market. He had been here, he had been here before, but when you're not, and this is a young gentleman. This is, he's younger than 25. When you're living in an area, but you're not looking to buy anything, yeah, you live there, you know the city, but it's different when you're actually looking to buy. You know, when you're in that age before that, you're doing. And I don't know how long. I don't remember how long he's been away from town, but it was kind of, hey, okay, so you want to do a house hack, you want multifamily. What is your end game? How long do you want to live there? Right? There's different types of multifamilies. Do you want something that's move-in ready? You want something where you need to add, you want to add value and bring something in, and so it was kind of just peppering him with a lot of questions to figure out what he wanted because he knew that he had the general picture of what he wanted to do, but we got to specifics. We shared our screen with him, and it was like, okay, well, look here. We look at this, part of Houston over here on the map, and we started pulling up auctions for him, right? And this was kind of just to show, look, we know what we're talking about here. We know the right questions to ask you, so that you start figuring out, okay, well, I didn't know that I wanted this, but now that you got asking me these questions, we can get there, right? So we kind of showed him some things, and we found, even in that initial conversation, which doesn't happen very often, we found some properties that are like, oh, this is kind of cool right here, you
yeah.
know. I don't know about you, but I don't know how many times I've had conversations with people, and the property that we ended up with was one of the properties that we found that day, that first conversation with him, we're like, oh, for an example, look what we can show you. Look what we have.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, it was kind of we showed him that, but we figured, okay, we still got to talk to the lender. We still got to do all these things. This may or may not be here. This may or may not be good for you. But it was kind of crazy. So then, we set him up with our lender, and then kind of went from there.
All right. So real quick, I think there's something that's important here that we got to talk about.
Mhm.
This guy, great client, awesome dude. He is 100% disabled through disability rating through the VA. So talk to me about how that affected what he was doing with his loan, his purchasing power, cash flow. And I know specifically because we actually dealt with a lot of 100% disability before. For those of you who are listening to this or watching this, you as a veteran, if you have a disability rating of 100%, you do not pay property taxes in the state of Texas.
No price housing. What else? There was also down payment, right?
No down payment.
Hmm.
So
Right. And specifically for this one, if I recall, it was no property taxes, but only on half of the property.
correct. So that's the weird nuance. So we
Okay.
actually deal with a lot of like 100% disabled. I got one right now where they're not paying property taxes moving into the house. But what's important to note here is that there's some stipulations, like Tony was just saying, with this specific scenario, the client had to pay property taxes on the other half that he's not living in. But this property makes a lot of sense cash flow wise.
Right.
Like from a hey, someone else is almost paying his mortgage from the other side in the unit.
Hmm.
Talk a little bit about that because I don't know the exact number. So
Not having to pay your property taxes in Texas is a big thing, right? We don't have state income tax, right? So where do they get you on the property tax? So yes, our home values are low compared to West Coast and some different parts of the country, but I don't I don't know what the percentage is in California, but I know the percentage here it makes the numbers pretty high for the value of the home.
yeah,
Right. So
sometimes the payment in California is the same as Texas. It's $500,000 different in home price,
mhm.
and we just have this like kind of crazy scenario where like people move here think they're going to get a cheaper home and they're like no it's the same because of property taxes.
Right, because you see the value of the home, you're like, oh, fantastic, and then you kind of plug in the numbers, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, 10,000 for property taxes for a year on a $400,000 home. It adds up. And so with our client here, it was kind of the idea of like, look, how much and this was a good situation because this duplex that we had literally had somebody whose lease was expiring right before our closing, like once we entered a contract. So it's part of the whole thing with this too, is that in order to qualify for all this, he had to live in it, right? We were using this as a house hack, his primary residence. It couldn't be one of those things where, hey, we get a duplex and now we got to kick somebody out, because that adds a couple of different layers. And so, like I said, this one kind of just happened to like, oh, when I called up the listing agent, we're interested, we want to check this out. We know that it's occupied. When do those leases end? And it was like, oh yeah, one of them ends, end of the month. Makes it pretty, but yeah, so in terms of trying to figure out his finances, once we coordinated with the lender, it was, hey, you've got X amount coming in from that other half, and obviously it'd be fantastic if unit B paid for the entire thing. It didn't quite work out that way, but for a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, I think he's paying a couple $100 to cover the rest of the mortgage, and that's ridiculously cheap, right? So he, we got him a great deal, but it was kind of, we talked to our lender, and it was okay. We did 0% down, and the thing is, this is where I'll need your help. Is this is my first VA loan too, right? And so it was just kind of figure out, oh, I didn't know that 100% does XYZ. What is the other percent? If someone's at 60%, 80%. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a learning process for me there too. Like, okay, I'm glad we're taking care of our vets.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think what's important here to note is that with this specific transaction, like his cost of entry was so low because he was putting zero down. You actually negotiated closing costs for him from the seller,
Mm-hmm.
and he has a tenant paying almost all of his mortgage. I mean, this is like the perfect scenario. Now, mind you, not every time are you going to be able to go in and house hack like this if you're not 100% disabled. I want to be very clear about that. This
Right.
was a special case where he had a disability that gave him zero property taxes. So it made a lot of sense. It still makes sense when you're buying stuff like this, but you just got to pay attention. I mean, realistically, I think had he had to make more, yeah, I think it would have been 800 a month in taxes or something like that. So he's still like not he's paying less than he would in rent to own a duplex and have the other person pay most of his mortgage. It's still
Exactly.
a really good deal, but just something to keep in mind there is it's kind of case by case. If you're not 100% disabled, like your property tax discount is less and you're still going to pay property taxes. So just to kind of think about that, like you want
Right.
to make sure that, you talk to someone you trust, a real estate professional like Tony, like our team, or even just talking to a lender and getting all that figured out will help you in the long run,
Yep.
making sure the numbers make sense. But this is what's important here: the numbers made sense. This was his first investment property.
Hmm.
He's working, for a company that he has a good stable job. He's going to gain equity in this house. It's in a growing area. Like I said, it was near Porter, which is a huge growing area across the Northeast Houston area. So
Hmm.
he's buying in an opportunity zone. I think the house is like 2 years old too, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, this duplex is 2 years old. It's got modern finishes. It was absolutely gorgeous.
It's still under
Um,
the builder's warranty, right? It's still under the warranty, right? So
Yeah,
that
came
and
with
that
a
was
builder's warranty. I mean, it was and also something of note here, this property actually had lower taxes because it was in an older neighborhood. So
mhm,
Roman Forest has actually been around for a while and they're building on it. So because the neighborhood's been so established, the tax rate's actually cheaper in that area. So even if he had to pay property taxes, it would have been less than, let's say,
yeah,
your brand new construction home, with a 3.2, 3.4 tax rate.
right. And that's something to point out too is that Houston and the general Houston area, we have all these brand new communities which are fantastic, but with these new communities, they need to build up that infrastructure, right? They need that. So you're getting taxes that are 30-40% higher than the more established parts of Houston. But since we were in an area, like you said, it wasn't like there was just a field here and they put it's in a neighborhood that is been established. And so we had that benefit of a tax rate that was 30% lower than if it was truly brand new construction in a brand new area.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, and man, I'm so happy that you got to do this and be a part of this. I mean, we do stuff like this all the time with clients, and like I said, I got one right now that closes at the end of this month where he's going in with zero down, and everything's really taken care of. He's 100% disabled. His payment's reasonable,
Right.
like super reasonable. Um, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I know you had um gone through the inspection process, and this being your first VA loan, talk to me about some of the things that you had to look out for on this VA loan or things that had to get repaired specifically because of the VA stipulations.
Sure. Sure. So, I mean, to kind of, so usually, right, when we get an inspection done, we know there's going to be issues on that inspection report, right? And so, that comes down to you're negotiating between the buyer and seller. Here, we want this repaired. We want a credit for X, Y, Z, and it's kind of things are negotiable. Well, what I learned with this VA loan is that there are things that are not negotiable, right? There are things that need to be addressed in order to get funding, right? So it can't be one of those things where, hey, for example, we want this ace, we want something fixed, and the seller's like, no, we don't want to fix it, right? There's something to go, but here it's like, if you don't fix it, we can't get this loan because it is a lender requirement, right? So in this case, it was WDI, which is what wood destroying insects, right? So there was basically part of the foundation had a crack in it, right? So when we had our inspection come out, there was the normal list of things, that we wanted to look at, plumbing, HVAC, and things, and that we could then kind of negotiate and figure it out. But once it's said on the report, there's an area on the foundation that there weren't any signs of any insects, but there was, hey, look, here's a path where the insects could come in if they want to,
Yep.
right? And so at that point, it was let's take this to the sellers and say, here's our list. Also, just to let you know, because we're on this VA loan, this has to get done. This is a non-negotiable. If you guys want to move forward with selling this home, it's got to get done. And so, they take it, they look at, and so, part of that was like, look, you also need to get done by a certain, by a, a reputable company. I don't want, you know, Uncle Jimmy coming in and plastering up so it looks done, take a photo, and all of a sudden it looks done. You have to get somebody who comes in and does the work. Right. And so but it was great because there's no reason for them to object to that repair specifically,
Yeah,
right?
and I think something that's important here, I mean, this was a newer home, but there are other items, like if there's wood rot or things like that,
Mhm.
there are gonna be things that the VA, appraisal is not that it's gonna be required to be fixed before they can get funding, like you said.
Right.
And, luckily, it was something that was easily fixable. They fixed it, we got receipts and everything, but, man, I'm telling you, like, this is the type of stuff that just these are things you should know about if you're buying a home and you're on a VA loan, like, and you're a veteran, like, you 100% need to know these things, and your agent should know these things
Right.
because these are things that can make or break. Like, I don't want my client buying an 80-year-old house and having things that like will come up in the inspection. If I know they're going to come up, we have to have an honest and intentional conversation with the agent and be like, hey, by the way, I saw this thing. I know it's going to come up on a VA loan because of XYZ. It needs to be addressed.
Right.
Um,
Right. But I think sometimes in listings they'll even say what kind of what kind of financing that are considered. Right. So if it's a home that would, maybe if it's an older home that they're not going to want to spend any money, they want to sell it as is. We want to know that up front, right? I assume because it's like if you're going to sell it as is, you don't want to do any repairs, and we have a VA loan that is requiring those repairs, that might not be the best option.
yeah, it may not
You know,
qualify.
it
Like
may, it may be a dead end because both parties may want it to happen, but financially it can't happen. That
yeah,
could be an issue.
absolutely. I don't want to get into too much of the specifics of the numbers.
Mhm.
I do you have an idea off the top of your head how much he brought cash to closing?
It was under 8,000, I believe, roughly.
Okay. So under 8K buying a
You know, you know,
$435,000.
you know, I think it was I think it was under 6 or 5. I mean, it was pretty low. It was, you know, which when you close on a home here and you have it, only one comma in that
Yeah.
down,
Yeah, singular digits there.
yeah,
Okay, so this is something really cool. I mean, you had a
mhm,
client, let's just call it, let's say worst case scenario under 7K out the pocket.
mhm,
They have a duplex where their tenant is paying 80%, 90% of their mortgage,
yep.
and they're going to gain equity. They bought it below market value.
Below market value, yeah. When the appraisal came back, we already had equity in it. You know,
I mean, this is amazing. Like, this is a huge win,
Mhm.
and we see deals like this all the time. This is
Yeah,
what we're looking for our clients. We're working with people regularly, and if you're listening to this, and this is like, man, I need to be able to do this. Like, there's an easy path to this. There's an easy path to home ownership. If you're a
yeah,
veteran, house hacking, and you don't have to be a veteran to house hack. It's just just worked out because out of pocket and things like that, and the
right,
disability. But there is so much opportunity in the Houston area to get into a home, little to no cost. Sometimes you can even get your, a check back at closing. I've seen that with some of our veterans,
right.
depending on how much closing costs are offered. This is a really good time in the market with all the craziness and uncertainty to go get certainty, know that you're going to have someone paying at least part of your mortgage. I
Yeah,
got one right now, and this will be a different case study for a different day once it closes, but he's doing the same thing. He's FHA loan. I actually think he's conventional, but he's conventional loan, 5% down, buying a $290,000 duplex. He's going to live in the renovated unit. There's already a long paying tenant in it. So we can
yeah,
talk about that another time. But the same thing. I mean, and these people, this is what's happening out there. It's becoming the best move to go buy and house hack or buy these multifamily properties and start building your portfolio because the home prices aren't drastically dropping like the world tells us they are. They're actually especially in Houston, we're seeing a 3 to 6% rise year over year.
yeah.
And so these people are able to get in, buy something, start getting equity, and it buy in equity like you did.
Right,
And then go from there.
right. No, I mean, and it's a great thing, and like on top of that, part of what we're doing is we're doing our due diligence, right? When I talk to clients, especially investors, it's the idea of, look, I want to get you into something as soon as possible, but I'm never going to rush anything, right?
Sure.
It's all about the numbers because like I said, he did not see his place until he got the keys. I went to the inspection. I made sure that I talked with the different people. So it's it's building that trust with him because you know, I don't like buying clothes online because I don't know if it's going to fit. I want to check my clothes out, and not so to for him to trust us, trust our team to be like, I'm buying a house with you guys, and you guys are going to basically do all the legwork down there,
Yeah.
And so I tell people that I ask people, hey, what's your timeline? What's your timeline in terms of buying this thing? And I'm not trying to rush you. It's obviously if it happens on day 3, that's fantastic. If it happens on day 45, it takes a little longer, but we're going to take the time to do it correctly, right? Because you know he's a young kid and he wants to this be the first of many that he wants to do, right? And so there is no benefit for us to rush into to finding him. Oh, it's good enough. It's good enough, right?
We just happened to find one that made the most sense and already
Yeah.
had a tenant in place.
Right. Because I remember our conversation was like, here's one. And it was kept going. And it was just like, no, this can't be this good. It can't be this good. We're going to keep, I told him, don't fall in love with this one. We're going to figure some things out. Right. And it was just kind of like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's working out.
I love it. Well, Tony, as we're wrapping things up here, what is the easiest way for people to get a hold of you if they want to learn about this house hack that happened, or
Mhm.
buying a home in general, using their VA loan, investing in Houston real estate? How do they get a hold of you?
Brad, I believe they can click on is there something below here in
Yeah,
this?
there will be a link below.
Yeah. So click on the link below. Do I give my phone number out on something like this? I don't even know.
No, probably not, because then you're going to start getting calls from who knows where.
Yeah.
But your Instagram handle is probably the best way for people to reach you. So why don't you give that out, and it'll be below in the link.
It'll be below. That's perfect because I don't even know what my Instagram handle is.
I think it's at Tony's a gangster and sells real estate.
I think that one was taken. Tony Lathanh, the realtor.
The realtor.
Yeah.
So that'll be below. It'll also be on the video here. If you're listening to this, in the link below, there will be all the links to Tony's
Yes.
socials. I love it, Tony. We're grateful that you were able to share this with us.
Yes.
I'm excited for the podcast to be back. We're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna keep
Let's do it.
rocking,
I
talking
do. I
about
do miss
different
being
case
off
studies,
hand.
bringing on different guests and things like that. So I'm excited. Folks, if you are listening to this and you want to know more, you can reach out to us below. All our information's below. If you're watching this and you see the link below, you can also click on that. We have a ton of information just like this that we would love to share with you. This is stuff we deal with every day. We deal with real estate full time. We are a full service real estate team in the greater Houston area, and we would be honored to serve you and your family.
There we go. Look forward to hearing from you. And thanks for having me on the show. Oh wait, I'm a co-host now. Thanks for
You
being
did it.
on.
Hey, you can tell your mom I made it.
There we go.